The carbon cycle. Carbon. It is found in various forms on the earth. It occurs in the elemental form like diamond. It can occur as graphite. These are the two elemental forms. In the combined state, it is formed as carbon dioxide, then as carbonates, then as hydrogen carbonate salts, hydrogen carbonate salts, which occur in various minerals, and other forms like proteins, the building blocks, then carbohydrates, then fats, right? Then nucleic acids, then we say vitamins. This all, along with that, the endoskeleton, that means the skeleton which is present within the body, and exoskeleton of various animals. It is also formed from carbonate salts. So carbon is very, very important. It is incorporated into the life forms through the basic process of photosynthesis. We know no photosynthesis? It is a process by which carbon dioxide, it is fixed to form carbohydrates. And then this process takes place in the presence of sunlight, and chlorophyll is required, we know. And this dissolved molecule, that means the carbohydrate, which is the glucose molecule, it is converted into other substances, are used to provide energy for the synthesis of various metabolic products in the body and to carry out metabolic activities of all other animals. The utilization of glucose to provide energy involves the process of respiration. See, this is how this energy, respiration, when it is being utilized, then from here CO2 is released back into the atmosphere. So this is how it is fixed up and again went back to the atmosphere. Another process that adds CO2 back to the atmosphere is combustion, where first of all this carbon becomes an important component of the fossil fuel, and when these are burnt to provide energy, along with energy, what is released? Carbon dioxide, and that is sent back to the atmosphere. This fuel, fossil fuel process is being used up for heating, cooking, transportation, industrial area. Basically, the percentage of CO2 in the atmosphere is said to have doubled. Why? Because of the industrial revolution, on which I stressed again. Because in this industrial revolution, human beings started burning fossil fuel on a very, very large scale. Carbon is thus cycled, recycled again and again, repeatedly through different forms by the various physical as well as the biological processes, and ultimately it is sent back to the atmosphere. Now coming to the cyclic form, how it is fixed and how it is released back to the atmosphere. First of all, the available form is CO2. This CO2, when taken up by the aquatic animals, it is converted to carbonates in water, where it is fixed to form carbonates, right? Secondly, it is taken up by plants, and we know when the plants, they fix carbon dioxide, this process is known as photosynthesis. And this photosynthesis process will ultimately lead to After death and decay, that means on decay, this will become coal. Then it can become petroleum by the action of organisms which are under the earth millions of years ago. These fossil fuels are being formed. It can reach animals. How? That is via food chain. We know whatever enters our body from plants is via food chain, right? Or plants release a little amount of carbon dioxide back to the atmosphere as well. This is a process of respiration. Then what do animals do? Animals' body can be decayed and petroleum can be formed, right? So coal and petroleum are the end products of decay of plants and animals. Then these animals, when they are buried in the sea as well, they become an important component that is called shell. So we can say inorganic carbonates are formed, which are known as shells. Animals, on releasing this respiration process and decomposition, the CO2 is sent back to the atmosphere. Now, if we say coal and petroleum, these burning of fossil fuels will also lead to the formation of carbon dioxide and is sent back to the atmosphere. This process is known as combustion. Right. So, which all processes have we covered here? First combustion, second respiration, then decomposition, photosynthesis. This is how carbon dioxide, this carbon dioxide, it is cycled repeatedly through different forms by the various physical and biological activities. Moving to our next topic, the greenhouse effect. What is global warming and the greenhouse effect? See, we are familiar with certain glass houses which are responsible for sheltering the delicate plants, right? We call them greenhouses. Right? A building which is chiefly made up of glass, and for growing or sheltering the delicate plants, this is known as greenhouse. The glass walls of the greenhouse allow the sun rays to pass into the interior right up to the earth's surface. However, the rays which are refracted back or reflected back, these are not allowed to pass through. Okay, they are not allowed to escape by the glass walls, as well as the CO2 gas, the water vapors present in the air inside the glass house. This, when we say the trapping of this light, will make the interior or the greenhouse air warmer compared to the outside air. This is called greenhouse effect. Same way, we see the atmospheric cover around the earth. This is the atmospheric cover around the earth. It acts like a glass wall. This is our glass wall, which is of the greenhouse, exactly like that. It allows all the solar radiations to pass through it and to strike the earth's surface. They strike the earth's surface. However, it prevents the longer radiations to move back. Now, these are not allowed. These IR radiations, that means the long wave infrared radiations, are not allowed to escape into the space, outer space. Gases like CO2, gases like methane, which is known as CH4, chlorofluorocarbons, nitrous oxide, ozone. These are called greenhouse gases. What do we call them? Greenhouse gases. Out of these, CO2, it is the most important greenhouse gas. Why are these important? Because they keep the earth warm. That means the average temperature of the earth is around 15 degrees Celsius. But in the absence of these greenhouse gases, it may drop down to minus 20 degrees Celsius, killing all the life forms on the earth. We are adding large amount of CO2 and methane to the atmosphere. How? By the burning of fossil fuels in homes, industries, automobiles. Remember, we have just discussed burning associated with the agricultural practices, by deforestation. Methane is added by the decay of vegetation matter in marshes area, in paddy fields, in biogas plants. These gases generally trap the heat. That means the IR radiations. These are all infrared radiations which are trapped. But the longer ones are not allowed to escape, thereby heating up the Earth's atmosphere. This heating up of the atmosphere, which is leading to increase in Earth's temperature, is global warming. Right? This is the phenomenon of global warming. Right? What are the harmful effects of global warming? What is it if it is happening? If there is an increase in temperature of the earth even by 1 degree Celsius, it can lead to the melting of polar ice which is present on the poles of the earth. This will result in rise in sea level. The coastal regions will be flooded, might even submerged. This is the drastic effect. Then increase in temperature of the earth due to greenhouse effect will result in changes in weather and precipitation patterns. This is what we say is the greenhouse effect. Now moving to our oxygen cycle. What is the importance of oxygen? Obviously, we know it's an essential component of all the biomolecules. Right? It is needed for respiration as well. Main sources. From where is it obtained? Normally from atmosphere. About 20 to 94% of it is obtained from the atmosphere in the molecular form. Molecular form means O2 form. Some oxygen is found dissolved in water as well. Traces in water, and a part of it is in the form of carbon dioxide as well. But the available form is from the atmosphere. Oxygen is basically in a state of dynamic equilibrium. It is taken up by animals and plants from the air, dissolved in water for use, and it takes up all the respiration actions. Means हमारी जो respiration होती है उसका मतलब होता है oxygen is going to break up all the glucose molecule. Okay, so what happens? Oxygen is taken inside the body and is respiration process where this oxygen helps in oxidation, right? Then it is returned to the atmosphere. In which form? It is in combination with carbon as carbon dioxide, or with hydrogen. In which form? Water. Then these carbon dioxide and water, what do? These two are used up by plants. Right? Plants take up both. Then what the plants do? Plants liberate molecular oxygen back to the atmosphere. And this oxygen is again used in respiration process. Thus the cycle is completed like this. And the concentration of oxygen in air and water is maintained at the equal rate of its usage in respiration and release in photosynthesis. It is maintained by the process of respiration as well as photosynthesis. Oxygen is also released as a part of CO2. How come? As a part of CO2. Where? By the action of decay of dead organic matter. And oxygen becomes a major component of water, CO2, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, NO2, right? During the burning of fossil fuels, that means during combustion, oxygen is released into the atmosphere. Some oxides are formed by microbial oxidation and ultimately it is released back. Now this is how it is cycled in the atmosphere. Now coming to the cyclic chart of this oxygen, the depiction. Here we say oxygen, that is in air. This is used by animals and plants. Basically this one is used by oxygen in the air by animals and plants. If we say the process of respiration is taken up here, then it is taken up by animals also. Animals only, and plants do take up during the process of respiration. Then what are the products which are released? The products which are released are CO2, carbon dioxide, and water. Do these products are being utilized anywhere? Yes, only by the plants, not animals, for the process of photosynthesis. Right? And photosynthesis process says that it forms the organic compound. Which organic compound? Glucose. Formula is C6H12O6. Okay, this organic compound is formed. This organic compound again being utilized by the animals during the process of respiration, and oxygen is released back into the atmosphere. This is how the oxygen is cycled back into atmosphere. Now moving to the last topic of this chapter, ozone layer. Ozone layer. What is ozone layer? First of all, we know that there is a diatomic molecule, that is O2, which is mainly present in the atmosphere. Our atmosphere, right? But in stratosphere. Stratosphere, which is somewhat around 18 to 50 kilometers above in the atmosphere. This diatomic molecule, it is converted into ozone molecule. That means containing 3 atoms of oxygen, right? And it undergoes simultaneously photodissociation and it forms molecular oxygen along with nascent oxygen. We call it nascent oxygen. This is called photodissociation. That means it occurs because of the activity of light under the influence of UV radiations. Right? We write here UV radiations. when this process takes place, the dynamic balance is basically maintained and the concentration of ozone remains the same in the atmosphere. This ozone exists as a thick blanket called ozonosphere. It has its own area, ozonosphere or ozone shield. Unlike this O2, this is poisonous, and we are very lucky that it is not around us. Okay, it is not stable near the Earth's surface, but this shield, it performs a very useful function. What is that useful function? This shield absorbs harmful UV radiations that is there of the sun and prevents them from reaching the Earth's surface. So we are lucky that we are not near this poisonous gas. What have we found? That this ozone layer is depleting. That means the concentration of ozone, which is quite high, it is being depleted by the pollutants. These pollutants like chlorofluorocarbons, these are the synthetic harmful chemicals which are widely used where? In refrigerators, in AC, air conditioner, as coolants, in fire extinguishers, in aerosol sprays, in propellants, everywhere these are being used. Okay, in AC, in fire extinguisher, in aerosol sprayers, then in propellants, and these chlorofluorocarbons, they are mainly responsible for the depletion of ozone layer in the atmosphere. And these harmful chemicals, they produce actually chlorofluoro, means active chlorine and active fluorine. That means Cl and ClO radicals. These have a tendency to attract the nascent oxygen and leaving behind this molecular oxygen. Therefore, when this is molecular oxygen which is only left, formation of O3 molecule, it becomes a little difficult. And this ozone layer in the upper atmosphere, it is becoming thinner. A single chlorine atom can destroy 1 lakh ozone molecules alone. 1 lakh ozone molecules, therefore depleting the ozone layer. And these therefore are known as ozone depleting substances. Increasing human activities also have resulted in the production of release of such particles, CFCs, and therefore this has resulted in formation of thinning of the ozone layer known as ozone hole. Hole does not mean a hole in the layer, no. Ozone hole means thinning of the ozone layer, which allows more UV radiations to pass through in, which will strike the earth and will cause harmful effects. What are the harmful effects? The harmful effects that we talk about, these are skin cancer, number 2, damage to the eyes, normally increased incidence of cataract disease in the eye, then is damage to immune system, then is increased embryonic motility. That means embryonic deaths. Then number 5, in plants there is increased death rate of seedlings. And harmful mutations. Therefore, these mutations means variations will automatically reduces the yield, right? So always remember, ozone hole means decline in the thickness of ozone layer. I'll write it down. Ozone hole means decline in thickness of ozone layer over a restricted area. Okay, this is known as ozone hole, which is first discovered in Antarctica in 1985, and the amount of atmospheric ozone is always measured by a Dobson spectrometer, which we call DU, Dobson unit. It is a Dobson spectrometer which measures the density of the ozone. Clear?